Okay, let's get the bowl off the base of this carburettor. You need a 10 socket or spanner. Make sure you keep the washer, the fibre washer. Okay, the bowl will come off. Sometimes the rubber O-ring stays in the carburettor body. This time it's actually onto the carburettor, so retain that. Next thing we're going to remove from this is the float, so pull out the pin. Let's take this pipe off first off. That's just an overflow pipe. So take the pin out, one pin, and lift the choke off. Now I've just dropped the valve, float valve in there. Look, there it is. Right, float valve, very, very small, very expensive, £16. I don't know what that is in dollars if you're listening in America, so you don't want to lose that. So there's a float. Next thing we're going to remove is the main jet. So a nice flat screwdriver, take the jet out. Okay, that's the jet removed. So we'll go to the top of the carburettor now. That's what the jet looks like. It's a hole down the centre. That normally is the part that gets clogged up. So next thing, we'll take out the throttle stop screw on the top with a star screwdriver. And there's a spring with this, so you just need to watch it there. Throttle stop screw with spring. Next thing we'll go for is the idle, this one is the pilot jet. And there's a very, very small hole in this. So we can get that out. I don't know if I can see, you can see that. Okay, next part out is, this is the idle jet screw. You need to bring that out, and there we are. And it's important when you put that back in, you don't tighten it down, because often I see it with ridges. Okay, you can see how dirty this carburettor is. I'm going to stick it in an ultrasonic cleaner. That'll bring it up like brand new. So anyway, there's the this is the choke side, very strong spring on that, and here's the throttle side here. Okay. So we've got some gaskets still sticking on there. Right, okay. This is the float valve. Now, I'm showing you this because sometimes people forget to clean this, but I'll show you with a screwdriver, because it's got a spring in this top section here. If you can just see this, you can just push it in with a screwdriver head. You see that? Okay. Sometimes that gets jammed, so you need to put that into the ultrasonic cleaner as well to make sure that that is free. I'll just do that again just to show you. Keep it under the camera. Okay, this one's free. So anyway, that's an important area to check. The next thing is the pilot jet. Now the pilot jet, that's got a very small hole in it. Now what I tend to use for this is a little bit of copper wire. Don't be tempted to use steel wire, it's got to be a copper wire. This is just one strand from a piece of flex or cable, and just push it through that hole a couple of times. That'll clear that hole down. Okay, this is a nice clean carburettor. Look at that, it looks like brand new. So we're going to put that back together. First off, we're going to put the O-ring into the top of the carburettor. Okay, make sure it's not cracked, because some older carburettors, that rubber tends to go a little bit hard. Make sure you seat it in properly, it's not twisted or anything else like that. What I tend to do is use the flat of a screwdriver just to seat it in. All the way around, make sure that that's nicely seated. Okay, next thing we'll go for is we'll put in the float and the float valve. Now the float valve has got a little spring that you just clip over a tang. Okay, so we'll put the float valve in, there it is, and you notice it's got a little wire tang that just slips over the plastic tang of the thing. The easiest way to do it is have it downwards and just slide it gently into the hole. Okay, that's in. Then we need the float pin to go in now. Float pin. Okay, try not to force anything, nice and gentle. That's in. Okay, let's put the main jet in now. Okay, that's nice and clean. So we'll just screw that in. And just get a flat screwdriver and just nip it up. No need to over tighten it, just nip it up gently. Okay. Right, we'll put the float bowl on. Right, we need the nut with the fibre washer. Now the float bowl, it's important you put this on right, otherwise you'll end up taking the carburettor off. If you put it in the wrong position, you won't get it onto the engine properly, because it will inhibit it going on properly. Anyway, I tend to line up the drain screw in between that hole and the input for the fuel. So round about there, and put the nut in. Don't forget your fibre washer. And once again, don't over tighten this nut, because we've seen carburetors come in where the emulsion tube's actually been snapped off due to excessive force being put on the nut. Just nip it up, that's all you need. Right, let's go for the next bits. This is the pilot jet, nicely cleaned, and that goes in where it came out. I'm sorry, I'm off focus, out of camera range here. Okay, right, just screw that in. Once again, doesn't need to go in too tight, just nip it in, nip it up. Right, next part, throttle stop screw. Now I'll explain this. You don't want this in too far. I tend to set up with the idle jet, but you have to, it's a combination of the throttle stop screw and the idle jet to get a decent slow run. Okay, if it's too far backed out, the engine will stop when you throttle down by hand. So I push it in until I can just feel it pushing on the throttle at the back. Okay, next part is the idle adjustment jet. Okay, now when you put this in, seat it gently down, on this thing. So you screw it in till you can feel it just bottom out. Okay, as soon as you can feel it bottom out, you need to back it out now, roughly 1 7/8 of a turn. So 1 7/8 of a turn. So count it around until you get roughly 1 7/8 of a turn. Okay, that's the correct area for it to be. You might need a slight adjustment. Okay, we'll put this overflow pipe back on. And that's it. One carburettor, cleaned up, ready to go back on the machine. See you in part 3. Take care.